Something about a Dragonforce album being called Maximum Overload just makes sense. Let's be blunt. There's just so much that goes on during a Dragonforce song, a typical Dragonforce song. So many beats per minute, so many notes. The solos are wild and crazy. Wow. Maximum Overload is a beautiful title for this album. It's almost poetic, almost like the band themselves are kind of poking fun at themselves. And that lighthearted nature is something that's really worth noting. You may remember that a couple of years ago, actually about a year ago, Dragonforce was voted on as one of the 10 worst artists that are making music today by the coverkillernation, which inspired some rather funny comments. If you haven't watched that trilogy of videos, you probably should, because they're worth it. It's definitely good for a laugh. But Dragonforce on this album, it's almost as though the focus was so just already prefabricated in their minds. They already knew exactly where they wanted to go with this and how they wanted to execute it, that the result has actually been in some damn good songwriting. Maximum Overload by itself doesn't eclipse the 50-minute mark. You don't get into the really long and lengthy territories unless you throw in the special bonus tracks and things of that variety. Let's talk about the basic bare bones albums. Let's talk about, firstly, the first thing that really sticks out to you like a weird, strange sore thumb. And that's the fact that you see Ring of Fire right there at the end. Could this be the Johnny Cash song? Well, actually, yes, it is. Now, whenever you think of Johnny Cash, you don't necessarily think of, a power/fantasy/Nintendo/speed metal band covering him. It's not exactly the first thing that comes to your mind. You don't exactly go into listening to Johnny Cash, any of his tracks, and think, Dragonforce, yes. But they did it. And they actually did a fairly awesome job in Dragonforcing it. So, if you're expecting this to sound kind of like a carbon copy, only with heavy aggressive guitars and some shredding, well, you're half right. The band was able to kind of tool the song a little bit to kind of suit their style, and I think that's the reason why I enjoy this. Because they didn't go with the basic principle, the basic idea of just leaving the song as is and trying to incorporate their style, or Johnny Cash's style, into their own. Instead, they did it in reverse, which I think is right. They actually took the Johnny Cash song and put their style within it, which actually gives it a nice, unique flavor and a unique taste to it. This is arguably going to no doubt be the most unique cover of Ring of Fire that we hear until some other asshole decides to do something even more weird. The songwriting, though, is what really kind of took a bit of a principal focus for me. Now, there are, granted, a number of Dragonforce songs that are great to listen to, and really just kind of marvel at this band's talent. To marvel at their abilities, to marvel at their speed, to marvel at their precision, their expert abilities on their instruments, and to hear some, fantasy lyrics and have a little bit of fun. But sitting down and doing that for an entire experience is something that's been a little bit more difficult to do lately. It's not like whenever they first burst onto the scene, and this is something that was brand new and really took us all by surprise. We're now about 6 albums in, so now the luster is kind of all worn off. The paint is chipping a little bit. We need something in order to really buff those chips out and, really bring a new shine to the old gal, if we're using a car metaphor. Unlike the band that we just spoke about in Opeth, who have decided to go on a conceptual style shift, Dragonforce opted to also kind of rethink things a little bit, but not stray too far from their trademark sound. But similarly to Opeth, they've opted to tread into more progressive territory. I know that scares a lot of Dragonforce fans that I said that, but by now hopefully you've heard the album and you know what I mean. The Sun is Dead. The Sun is Dead, track number 6 on this album, is, to me, a huge highlight. This is such a huge highlight, and really a shining moment in Dragonforce's discography, in my personal opinion. This song is able to incorporate all of the great Dragonforce elements, but they're able to kind of slow things down a little bit. They don't need to be going at a pace that's attempting to set a land speed record, as they attempt to with track 1, The Game, which is the fastest song that they've ever recorded. No, instead this is one where they actually take a little edge off of it. Yeah, they actually dial it back a very, very minute amount. And in fact, the chorus of this track almost feels like they're paying some strange homage to Dream Theater, and that's actually a really nice touch. The fact that they're able to incorporate their already trademark sound and also kind of do a little wink wink nudge nudge to arguably one of the biggest progressive metal bands of all time, but definitely of the time right now, is certainly a huge plus. And the fact that they were able to make it sound so damn good just really, really helps. It's almost like listening to a track off of Blind Rage from Accept, such as The Empire Has Fallen. It's just something that chorus really blows you away and becomes sort of the focal point of the song, which is what most choruses tend to be, considering they have a repetitious aspect to them, where they're spoken or sung, should I say, multiple times throughout the course of the track. You have to have a strong chorus if you plan on having one in order for the song to really be successful. It can't really, hinge based around what surrounds it, considering you're returning back to the central theme. On this track, on The Sun Is Dead by Dragonforce, the lyrics on this chorus may not exactly seem all that clever. In fact, they may seem rather direct, and they are. But it's the overall experience that swirls around it that makes you actually very excited to hear that chorus again. And they even dial it back a little bit on the solo. They're able to use a lot more harmony. They're able to use a lot more preciseness as opposed to just blinding you with speed. That's the one thing that I think really sets this album apart. We know that Dragonforce has the speed. We know that they have an overdose of speed. There's a good chance that their fingers are on cocaine. We understand that, we've known that, and I think the band understands that we know that. The band also understands that, a lot of people thirst to hear that with every record, but there are others that thirst for great musicianship. And they really pay respect to the latter of those two individual groups on Maximum Overload. Thematically, you can definitely hear a lot of whispers and tones about how we are, as a culture, bombarded every single day with probably way more information than we need to know or need to even care about. It's to the point where I say, please, if you're watching my videos, don't take it as an assault on your information cavities. Instead, take it as a way to kind of sit back and have a little bit of fun and talk about music in the process. And understand that my reflection and my opinion is merely that of one man's, and yours is definitely allowed to differ. 81 out of 100. Going into this, I didn't expect to actually give this that high of a score. Part of me felt like I was going to listen to this album and it was going to be kind of, par for the course. Same thing as always. I was half right. I mean, there were some moments that definitely felt like a lot of moments that I've heard before from the band, but you can't necessarily blame them for continuing on the course. Also, I think it's kind of neat that Matt Heffy of Trivium was able to give them some aggressive vocals for 3 tracks. I think that also added to the diversity a little bit, because now not only do you have some musical diversity thrown in there, but also some vocal diversity to go along with it. It's just, one of those subtle little, add-ons or bonuses that really makes the whole experience complete. What did you guys think about Maximum Overload? Good album? Album? What was your favorite song? Did you ever be through the fire and flames on Expert whenever you played Guitar Hero? To understand that joke, you have to watch the